Her children thought she was poor, but the nursing home uncovered the fortune she hid. Dorothy Johnson watched her 3 children gathered in the living room, their voices blending into an argument she knew by heart. They spoke about her as if she weren't there, as if she were a problem to be solved. "Mum, you can't live alone in this house anymore," said Michael, the eldest, adjusting his tie while glancing at his watch. "You forget to take your medicine and leave the stove on. Just yesterday, the neighbor had to come over because you were confused on the street." Jennifer, seated on the couch beside her twin sister Rebecca, nodded in agreement. The two had always done everything together, thought alike, and now was no different. "Michael's right, Mum. We can't take care of you the way you need anymore. I have my little kids. Rebecca's going through a messy divorce, and Michael's always traveling for work." Rebecca finished her sister's thought, just as she had since they were children. "We found a really nice place, Mom. Magnolia Gardens. It's a senior home right here in Cleveland. You'll have company, medical care, activities, and it'll be cheaper for all of us," Michael muttered, thinking his mother hadn't heard. Dorothy watched them with a calm expression, but inside it felt like a knife was piercing her chest. At 78, she still considered herself capable of taking care of herself. Sure, she sometimes forgot things, but who didn't at her age? Her mind wandered to the suitcase hidden in the attic, full of secrets her children would never imagine. "You've all already decided, haven't you?" she asked, her steady voice belying the turmoil inside. "Mum, it's for your own good," Jennifer insisted. "We can't afford a private caregiver, and you know our finances aren't great." It was true. Dorothy knew about her children's struggles. Michael had lost his job 6 months ago and was doing odd sales gigs. Jennifer and her husband were barely keeping up with their kids' tuition. Rebecca was in the middle of a messy divorce that was draining her savings on lawyers. "When do you plan to take me there?" she asked. "Resigned. Next week," Michael replied. "We've already talked to the administration. Since your only income is your pension, they agreed to a lower rate. It'll match what you get." Dorothy nodded slowly. They had no idea how much money she really had. For years, she'd lived simply, wearing plain clothes, buying only necessities, saving every dollar. Her children always assumed she lived solely on her late husband's modest pension and her own from her sewing days. "All right," she said, surprising all 3. "If that's what you think is best." The children exchanged glances, clearly taken aback by their mother's lack of resistance. They'd expected a fight, tears, arguments. Her easy acceptance left them uneasy. "Mom, are you sure?" Rebecca asked, a knot forming in her stomach. "You're my children. If you believe this is best for me, then it must be," Dorothy replied, rising from her chair. "I'll make some coffee for you." As she walked to the kitchen, Dorothy's legs trembled, not from weakness, but from the emotions she was fighting to control. Her children had grown up, built their own families, but they'd seemingly forgotten who the woman who raised them was. The woman who worked 16-hour days sewing to support them after their father passed. The woman who saved every dollar to give them an education. In the kitchen, her hands shook as she prepared the coffee. She looked out the window at the backyard, where she had cultivated a garden for over 30 years. The rose bushes she planted when Michael was born were now in full bloom. The hydrangeas Jennifer and Rebecca loved as little girls swayed gently in the afternoon breeze. "Mom, are you okay?" Jennifer had approached quietly. "I'm fine, dear. Just thinking about how much I'll miss this kitchen." Jennifer swallowed hard. For the first time since they'd started planning their mother's move to the nursing home, she felt they might be making a mistake. But she quickly pushed the thought away. It was the most practical decision. They didn't have the means to care for her properly. "Mom, you know if we could—" "I know, dear. You're doing what you can." Dorothy served coffee in the living room, and the 4 of them sat in uncomfortable silence. Michael scrolled through his phone, replying to work messages. The twins whispered to each other about the moving arrangements. "I'll pack your bags during the week," Rebecca offered. "You can only take 2 suitcases to the nursing home." "2 suitcases?" Dorothy repeated. "For a whole lifetime?" "Mom, we'll keep your things. Whatever's important, we'll store it," Michael said without looking up from his phone. Dorothy almost smiled ironically. They had no idea what was truly important to her. "The suitcase in the attic, for example." the one that held not just money but years of sacrifice, planning and love for them. After the children left, Dorothy went up to the attic for the first time in months. It was a small, dusty space, filled with boxes of family memories. In the darkest corner, behind a pile of old clothes, was the black suitcase she'd bought over 20 years ago. She dragged it to the center of the attic and opened it carefully. Inside, neatly organized in bundles and envelopes, was nearly $200,000 in cash. There were also jewels that had belonged to her mother and grandmother, investment certificates she'd collected over the years, and deeds to 2 small plots of land she'd bought under other names so her children wouldn't know. Dorothy had started saving this money right after her husband left. She worked as a seamstress by day and took on extra jobs at night. Every dollar saved went into that suitcase. Her plan had always been to leave it all to her children when the time came, divided equally, with one condition: that they take care of each other. Now, sitting on the dusty attic floor, she wondered if her children truly deserved to inherit any of it. They were willing to put her in a nursing home without even properly discussing alternatives. The following week, preparations began. Rebecca arrived early on Monday with boxes and plastic bags. "Good morning, Mum. Let's start organizing your things." Dorothy watched as her daughter opened the closet and began sorting clothes into 3 piles. Take, store, donate. "This blouse is too old, Mum. I'll put it in the donation pile." It was the blouse Dorothy had worn to Rebecca's wedding. She said nothing, just watched. "And these photos? There are so many, Mum. Do you want to pick a few to take?" Dorothy looked at the shoebox full of family photographs, decades of memories being reduced to a few to take. "You choose, dear. You know which ones are important." Rebecca picked out some recent photos and put the rest back in the box. Dorothy noticed she'd left out the pictures from when the children were little, when they were closer, more united. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps those of us just starting out. Now, continuing. The routine repeated all week. Jennifer came in the morning, Rebecca in the afternoon, and Michael showed up at night to check on the progress. Every day, Dorothy saw her life being dismantled, her memories sorted into what was important or disposable. On Thursday, Michael found the attic key in the kitchen drawer. "Mum, what's up there?" "Just old things," she replied, feeling her heart race. "I'll take a look. Maybe there's something worth keeping." "No need, son, it's just junk up there." But Michael was already climbing the stairs. Dorothy followed him, struggling, her heart pounding. He turned on the light and began rummaging through the boxes. "Wow, Mom, there's so much stuff here. Look at these old clothes and this suitcase." Dorothy nearly fainted when she saw Michael moving toward the black suitcase. Luckily, it was hidden behind other things, and he didn't reach it. "It's just old clothes, son, nothing valuable. Then I'll take it all to donate next week." "No," she said, louder than she meant to. "I mean, leave it to me. I'll sort out what can be donated." Michael gave her a strange look, but agreed. That night, Dorothy barely slept. She had to find a way to protect the suitcase without raising suspicion. Early the next morning, before the kids arrived, she went up to the attic and moved the suitcase to the basement. It was damp and rarely used, but safer. Friday came too quickly. It was Dorothy's last day in her home. Magnolia Gardens had confirmed a spot would be available on Monday. The 3 children gathered at the house for the last time as a family in that space. Dorothy had prepared each of their favorite meals, even though no one had asked. She made lasagna for Michael, pot roast for Jennifer, and beef stew for Rebecca. "Mom, you didn't have to do all this," Jennifer said, but there were tears in her eyes. "I wanted to cook for you one last time in my kitchen." During lunch, there were moments of heavy silence. Everyone knew something was changing irreversibly in their lives. "Mom, we'll visit you every week," Rebecca promised. "And whenever you want to go out, we'll pick you up," Michael added. Dorothy nodded, but inside she wondered if they'd really keep those promises. She knew her kids. The first few weeks they'd be diligent, but slowly the visits would become less frequent. After lunch, they did one last walkthrough of the house. Dorothy went through every room, touching the walls, the doorknobs, trying to memorize every Detail. All set, Mom. Everything's organized, Michael said. We'll lock up and come get you Monday morning. Are you selling the house? She asked. The children exchanged glances. It was obvious they'd already discussed it. Mom, keeping an empty house doesn't make sense. We thought we'd sell and split the money. That way, we can each settle. Our finances, Jennifer explained. Dorothy felt like she'd been punched in the gut. They weren't just putting her in a home, they were dismantling her entire life. What if I want to come back someday? Mom, let's be realistic. You're not coming back, Michael said, with a harshness that even surprised his sisters. That night was Dorothy's last in her home. She went to bed early but lay awake for hours, staring at the ceiling of the room where she'd slept for over 40 years. She remembered bringing each newborn child into that room, nursing her husband when he was sick, all the nights she'd sewed late for extra money. On Sunday, she gathered her courage and went down to the basement to see the suitcase one last time. She opened it and looked at all the money she'd saved through so much sacrifice. For a moment, she thought about revealing everything to her kids, showing them she wasn't the poor old woman they thought she was. But something stopped. Her? Maybe it was pride. Maybe it was the desire to teach them a lesson. Monday arrived cloudy and cold. Michael and Jennifer came to pick her up at 8 in the morning. Rebecca couldn't make it because she had to take her son to the doctor. Ready, Mom? Michael asked, grabbing the 2 suitcases. Dorothy looked one last time at her home. The curtains she had sewn herself, the garden she had tended with such care, the front door where she had first welcomed her daughters-in-law. I'm ready. The drive to Magnolia Gardens was quiet. Dorothy gazed out the window at the familiar scenery, mentally saying goodbye to each well-known place. The retirement home was a 2-story building painted light yellow with a well-kept garden out front. It looked welcoming, but it was still a retirement home. Good morning, you must be Mrs. Dorothy's family, greeted a middle-aged woman at the reception. I'm Carolyn, the social worker. Let's get the paperwork started. Michael and Jennifer answered all the questions about their mother as if she weren't even there: income, medical history, medications, emergency contacts. Dorothy felt like an object being handed from one owner to another. Your room is on the 1st floor. You'll be sharing with Mrs. Meredith, a very sweet lady, Carolyn explained as she led them down the hallway. The room was small but clean. 2 beds, 2 small wardrobes, a window overlooking the inner courtyard. Dorothy tried not to show her shock. She was used to having an entire house to herself. Mrs. Meredith is in the garden now, but she'll be back soon to meet you, Carolyn said. Michael and Jennifer helped unpack and arrange Dorothy's few belongings in the small wardrobe. Mom, we have to go now, but we'll come back this weekend to see how you're settling in, Jennifer said, kissing her mother's forehead. Call us if you need anything, Michael added. And just like that, after 78 years of independence, Dorothy found herself alone in a retirement home room, with only the few possessions that had fit into 2 suitcases. Her roommate, Meredith, arrived an hour later. She was a thin woman with completely white hair who talked non-stop. You must be the new resident. I'm Meredith, but everyone calls me Mary. Welcome. You'll like it here, you know? It's strange at first, but you get used to it. Mary told her story without Dorothy even asking. She had arrived 2 years earlier, after her only daughter moved to Australia. My daughter sends money every month, but she said she couldn't take me with her. Too complicated, she said, so she brought me here and promised to visit every year. Mary paused, a shadow crossing her face. So far, she's only come back once. Dorothy realized Mary was telling her own version of a story many there shared. Children who, for one reason or another, couldn't or wouldn't take care of their aging parents. Dinner that first night was a difficult experience. The dining hall was large, with round tables seating 6. Dorothy was introduced to the other residents: Mr. Walter, an 85-year-old former banker; Mrs. Rose, a 72-year-old retired teacher; Mr. Robert, who had been a truck driver; and Mrs. Alice, who barely spoke due to a stroke years earlier. You get used to the food, Mr. Walter said. It's different at first, but they try to make it tasty. The food was good, Dorothy admitted, but it wasn't the same as cooking for herself, seasoning things just the way she liked. That first night, lying in the unfamiliar bed, listening to Mary's soft snores, Dorothy cried for the first time since her children had announced their decision. She cried for the home she had left behind, for the independence she had lost, for the feeling of being discarded by her own family. But above all, she cried because deep down, she knew she had the power to change that situation and wasn't doing anything. The first week at Magnolia Gardens was all about adjustment. Dorothy discovered there was a strict routine: breakfast at 7, medication at 8, activities from 9 to 11, lunch at noon, rest in the afternoon, snack at 3, more activities until 5, dinner at 6, and TV in the common room until 9. The activities included physical therapy, which Dorothy realized she needed more than she'd thought, crafts, which she found childish, and health lectures that were informative but depressing. Michael called on Wednesday. "Hi, Mum. How are you settling in?" "Fine, son," she lied. "That's good. We'll come by on Saturday, okay?" "Okay." The call lasted less than 3 minutes. Jennifer called on Friday, an equally brief conversation. Rebecca didn't call. On Saturday, only Jennifer showed up to visit. "Where are Michael and Rebecca?" Dorothy asked. "Michael had to leave for a last-minute work trip, and Rebecca is having issues with her divorce lawyer." They sat in the nursing home garden for an hour. Jennifer talked about her kids, her job, trivial things. She didn't ask how Dorothy was really feeling, if she was happy, if she missed home. "Mom, we started packing up your things at the house. We found some nice stuff you might want here." "What kind of stuff?" "Some old photos, a few books, that shawl you always wore." Dorothy nodded, but inside she worried. What if they found the suitcase in the basement? The following week, Michael called with news Dorothy had already expected. "Mom, we found a buyer interested in the house. The offer isn't bad. We wanted to know if you agree." "You've already decided, haven't you?" "Mom, it's the most sensible decision. With the money from the sale, we can each settle our debts, and there'll still be enough to make sure you're well taken care." Five at the nursing home. Dorothy almost laughed at the irony. They were selling her house to pay for the nursing home where they'd put her. "Do what you think is best," she said. "We need you to sign some papers. Can I come by tomorrow?" "Come." Ahead. That night, Dorothy made a decision. She called the only number she had memorized besides her children's, Mrs. Clare's, her old neighbor, and friend of over 20 years. "Dorothy, my dear, how are you? I heard the kids took you to a nursing home." "I'm fine, Claire. Listen, I need a huge favor. Do you still have the key to my house?" "I do. Why?" "I need you to go there and get something very important for me. It's in the basement, a black suitcase. Can you do that?" "Of course, dear. But why don't you ask your kids?" "It's a surprise for them," Dorothy lied. "Can you hold on to the suitcase for me for now?" "Of course, I'll go first thing tomorrow." Claire was trustworthy. She'd looked after Dorothy's kids a few times when they were little and had always been a loyal friend. The next day, Michael arrived at the nursing home with a folder full of papers. "Mom, I need you to sign here, here, and here," he said, pointing to lines marked with yellow post-its. Dorothy read each document carefully. It was the authorization to sell the house, power of attorney transfers, and several other papers that basically stripped away any control she still had over her belongings. "Michael, what if I want to dispute something later?" "Mom, why would you? We're your kids. We want what's best for you." She signed the papers with a heavy heart. She was officially handing over control of her life to her children. 2 weeks. Later, Claire called. "Dorothy, I got the suitcase. My God, dear, what do you have in here?" "You looked?" "The suitcase opened while I was carrying it." "Dorothy, there's a lot of money in here." "I know, Claire. Can you keep it for me? And please don't tell anyone." "Of course I won't. But dear, why don't you use this money? Why are you in this nursing home if you can afford a private caregiver?" "It's a long story, Claire. Just promise me you'll keep it safe." "I promise." "But Dorothy, do your children know about this?" "No. And for now, I'd prefer it stays that way." Claire was curious but respected her friend's wishes. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now back to the story. The days at Magnolia Gardens began to pass more slowly. Dorothy grew accustomed to the routine but couldn't shake the feeling of abandonment. Her children's visits became bi-weekly, then monthly. Michael always had a work-related excuse. He was doing some sales rep jobs and traveled often. Jennifer came more frequently, but the visits were brief and superficial. Rebecca rarely showed up, always blaming her divorce troubles. During these visits, they shared family updates, but never asked how Dorothy was coping with the drastic change in her life. It was during one of Jennifer's visits that Dorothy learned the house had been sold. "Mom, we managed to sell the house for a good price. After settling everyone's debts, there's still some money left that we'll keep aside for your emergencies." "What kind of emergencies?" "If you need special medical treatment, expensive medications, things like that." Dorothy nodded. Her home, where she'd raised her children, where she'd been happy and sad, where she'd built a life, was now just money divided among 3 people. "Have the new owners moved in yet?" "Not yet, but they will next month. It's a young family with small children." Dorothy pictured children running through the garden she'd tended with such care, playing in the same backyard where her own children once played. The image was bittersweet. By the 3rd month at Magnolia Gardens, Dorothy began noticing changes in management. Carolyn, the social worker who'd welcomed her, was fired and replaced by a younger, less experienced woman named Fiona. "Mrs. Johnson, I need to review your file," Fiona said one Tuesday morning. "There have been some policy changes here." "What kind of changes?" "Well, the amount you're paying is a bit outdated. We'll need to adjust it." Dorothy felt a tightness in her chest. "By how much?" 40%. 40%? That's nearly half my pension." "I know it's difficult, Mrs. Johnson, but costs have risen a lot. If you can't manage, we may need to discuss other options with your family." Other options meant a public nursing home, and Dorothy knew the conditions there were much worse. That afternoon she called Michael. "Son, the nursing home raised the price." "By how much?" 40%. A long silence followed on the other end. "Mom, that's too much. We can't cover that increase. What should I do then? Let me talk to the girls and see what we can figure out." The answer came a week later. Jennifer arrived at Magnolia Gardens with a worried expression. "Mom, we talked about the increase. Unfortunately, none of us can help more. Michael's unemployed again. I'm spending a lot on Frederick's medical bills, and Rebecca, well, her situation is complicated. So what do you suggest?" "We looked into some public nursing homes. There's one on the north side with a waiting list, but they might have a spot for you." Dorothy felt as if the ground had opened beneath her feet. Public nursing homes were known for their poor conditions, lack of staff, and bad food. "You want to transfer me to a public nursing home?" "Mom, we don't want to. We just don't have a choice." That night, Dorothy barely slept. Meredith noticed her distress. "Dorothy, what's wrong? You've been so quiet today." Dorothy told her about the price increase and the possibility of having to move to a public nursing home. "Oh my goodness, dear, that's awful. Don't you have any other family who could help?" "No one but my children." Meredith held her hand. "You know, Dorothy, sometimes I think our children forget that they'll grow old one day too. They think they'll stay young forever." In the days that followed, Dorothy looked at Magnolia Gardens with new eyes. She noticed things she'd ignored before. The food had gotten simpler. There were fewer staff members. Some of the physical therapy equipment had been broken for weeks. Then, through Meredith, she learned that Magnolia Gardens was facing financial difficulties. Several residents had left in recent months because they could no longer afford it, and new residents weren't arriving fast enough. "Mrs. Alice told me she overheard the administration talking about possibly closing," Meredith whispered during dinner. "Closing? What happens to us then?" "They say they'll transfer everyone to partner facilities, but you know how those places." Us? Dorothy knew. She'd visited one when she was looking for a place to stay. They were overcrowded, poorly managed, with conditions more like storage units for the elderly. That night she made a decision. She called Claire. "Claire, I need you to come see me tomorrow. It's urgent." "Did something happen, dear?" "Can you come and bring the suitcase?" Claire arrived the next day carrying a shopping bag that disguised the weight of the suitcase. They sat in the garden away from the other residents. "Dorothy, what's going on?" Dorothy told her about the price increase, the possibility of moving to a public nursing home, and the financial troubles at Magnolia Gardens. "Sweetheart, why don't you use that money?" You could pay the increase and still have plenty left. Claire, my children put me here because they think I'm poor. If I reveal I have money, they'll want to know where it came from, why I hid it, why I didn't use it before. What's wrong with that? The problem is they judged me. They decided my fate without properly consulting me. They only thought about what was convenient for them, not my well-being. Claire shook her head. Dorothy, you're punishing yourself too. You don't deserve to live in a public nursing home just to teach your children a lesson. Maybe you're right, but I'm not ready to reveal everything yet. Then what do you want me to do? I want you to pay the increase for me. Directly to the nursing home. Say you came into some extra money and want to help a friend. Dorothy, please, Claire, it's temporary. Just until I figure out what to do. Claire reluctantly agreed. The next day, she showed up at the reception desk and spoke to Fiona. Good afternoon. I'd like to pay the increased monthly fee for Mrs. Dorothy Johnson. Are you family? A friend, a very old friend. I recently received an inheritance and want to use part of it to help Dorothy. Fiona was surprised but didn't ask further questions. Money was money, no matter who paid it. When Dorothy learned the payment had been made, she felt temporary relief. But she knew she was only delaying an inevitable decision. At the end of the week, Michael called. Mom, the nursing home administration called me today. They said a friend of yours paid the increase. What friend is this? Claire, my neighbor. Mom, you can't accept this kind of help from a stranger. Claire isn't a stranger. She's been my friend for over 20 years. Even so, it's not right. We'll give the money back to her. You won't give back anything, said Dorothy, with a firmness that surprised even her son. Claire offered help and I accepted. You don't have the right to interfere with that. Mom, you're being stubborn. I'm being independent. Something you took away from me when you brought me here. Michael fell silent for a few seconds. Fine, Mom. But we don't want you to become a burden to others. After hanging up, Dorothy kept thinking about her son's words. A burden. That's how they saw her. In the following weeks, the situation at the nursing home worsened. 2 staff members were fired, which meant less care for the residents. The food became even simpler, and some important equipment like the elevator started having frequent problems. Meredith grew increasingly worried. Dorothy, this place won't last much longer. We need to think of alternatives. What kind? Do I have alternatives? I don't know. Family, friends, somewhere to go. Dorothy knew Meredith had nowhere to go. Her daughter in Australia had stopped sending money months ago and no longer answered her emails. That's when Dorothy had an idea. A risky one, but one that could solve several problems at once. Meredith, what if I told you I could help you and others here? What do you mean? What if I told you I have the means to keep this place running? Meredith looked at her as if she'd lost her mind. Dorothy, are you okay? Your children brought you here because they couldn't afford to keep you at home. My children think I don't have money, but the reality is different. Meredith was confused, but Dorothy said nothing more at that moment. That night, she called Claire. Claire, I need you again. What's happened now? I want you to schedule a meeting with the nursing home's administration. Tell them you have a proposal to make. What kind of proposal? You'll offer to invest money into the home to improve conditions. In return, you want guarantees that current residents won't be transferred and that services will improve. Dorothy, that's a lot of money, are you sure? I am. It's my money and I want to use it to help people in the same situation as me. What about your children? My children don't need to know right now. Claire agreed to set up the meeting, though she was worried about the consequences of Dorothy's decision. The meeting took place on a Thursday morning. Claire arrived at the nursing home dressed formally and asked to speak with the director, Mr. Anthony. Mr. Anthony, my name is Claire Santos. I'm a long-time friend of Mrs. Dorothy Johnson, and I'd like to make a proposal. What kind of proposal? I've heard the home is facing financial difficulties. I recently inherited a considerable sum and would like to invest part of it to help improve conditions here. Mr. Anthony straightened in his chair. Are you serious? Completely. I'm willing to invest $50,000 immediately, with the possibility of more in the future. And what do you want in return? Guarantees that current residents won't be transferred, improvements in food quality, hiring more staff, and repairs for broken equipment. That's a very generous offer. May I ask why you're doing this? Because I believe our elderly deserve dignity and respect, and because I have a friend here who means a great deal to me. Mr. Anthony accepted the proposal that same day. The money would be transferred in installments, with each payment tied to the promised improvements. Claire returned home and called Dorothy. "It's done, dear. He agreed to everything." "Thank you, Claire. You're a true friend. Dorothy, I just hope you know what you're doing." In the following days, the changes at the nursing home began to show. New staff were hired. The food improved significantly. The elevator was fixed and new physical therapy equipment was purchased. The residents were thrilled with the upgrades. "Dorothy, have you heard about this mysterious donation?" asked Meredith. "I've heard a little," Dorothy replied, trying to hide a smile. "They say it was a woman who inherited some money and decided to help the nursing home. What a wonderful person. I'd love to meet her to thank her." Mr. Walter, who was nearby, chimed in. "There are still good people in this world. That woman saved this place." Dorothy felt good about helping, but she also carried the weight of living a lie. Her children still visited occasionally, always remarking on the nursing home's improvements. "How lucky you are, Mom," Jennifer said during one visit. "This place has gotten so much better." "Yeah, seems like a guardian angel showed up for you all," Michael added. If only they knew the guardian angel was the very mother they'd abandoned in a nursing home, Dorothy thought. 2 months after the upgrades, the nursing home received an unexpected visit, a routine inspection team from the city's health department. Dr. Frederick Morgan, the physician leading the inspection, was impressed by the conditions at Magnolia Gardens. "Mr. Anthony, this nursing home is far above the standard we usually see. How did you manage these improvements?" "We had a recent private investment, a donation from someone who prefers to remain anonymous." Dr. Morgan spoke with several residents during the inspection, including Dorothy. "Are you satisfied with the care you're receiving here?" "Very satisfied," she answered honestly. "How long have you been here?" 4 months. "And how was the adjustment?" Dorothy hesitated. "It was hard at first, but I'm getting used to it now." Dr. Morgan noticed something in her expression. "Would you like to speak with me privately?" "That's not necessary." But Dr. Morgan had experience with the elderly and sensed Dorothy was holding something back. After the inspection, he sought her out again. "Mrs. Johnson, may I ask you a few questions? It's for my report." They sat in the garden, away from other residents. "Did you choose to come here, or was it your family's decision?" "It was my family's decision." "And did you agree?" Dorothy was silent for a moment. "My children thought it would be best for me." "But did you want to come?" "Dr. Frederick, my children are good people. They had their reasons." "I'm sure." "They do, but I'm asking if you wanted to come." "No," she finally admitted, "I didn't." Dr. Morgan nodded. It was a story he knew well. "Do you have your own resources, retirement savings?" "I have my pension." "Is it enough to live independently?" "My children didn't think so." Dr. Morgan sensed there was more to the story, but didn't press further. That evening, he called Michael. "Mr. Michael, this is Dr. Frederick Morgan from the health department. I inspected the nursing home where your mother is staying and would like to speak with you." "Is something wrong with my mother?" "No, nothing's wrong. But I'd like to understand more about Mrs. Johnson's situation." They arranged to meet the next day. Dr. Morgan, a 45-year-old man, had specialized in geriatrics precisely because he was moved by the cases of elderly abandonment he frequently encountered. "Mr. Michael, your mother seems physically well, but I sense sadness in her. She told me she didn't want to come to the nursing home. Doctor, my mother is stubborn. She wanted to keep living alone, but she couldn't afford it." "What kind of couldn't afford it?" "Financially, mostly. Her pension barely covered basic expenses. And we, her children, are all struggling ourselves." "I see. Have you considered other options? A caregiver, for example?" "Doctor, a caregiver costs way more than the nursing home, and my mother needed companionship too." Dr. Morgan nodded, but something didn't quite add up. "Mr. Michael, may I ask if your mother was always financially limited?" "Always. My father passed early and she worked as a seamstress to raise us. She always lived simply. And she never mentioned having any savings. Never. Why do you ask? Professional curiosity. Sometimes elderly people keep small savings without telling their families. Not my mother. She was always very open with us about money. After the meeting, Dr. Morgan was left with a strange feeling. There was something in the story that didn't fit perfectly, but he couldn't pinpoint what. A few weeks later, during a routine visit to the nursing home, Dr. Morgan found Dorothy reading alone in the garden. "Mrs. Dorothy, how are you?" "Fine." "Doctor, thank you for asking. May I sit here with you?" "Of course." They sat in silence for a few minutes, watching the other residents. "Mrs. Dorothy, may I ask a personal question?" "Go ahead." "Have you ever thought about leaving here?" Dorothy looked at him surprised. "Leaving? To go where?" "To a house, an apartment, living independently again." "Doctor, my children brought me here because I couldn't afford to live alone." "But what if you could?" Dorothy fell silent for a long time. "Why are you asking me this?" "Because I've worked with the elderly for many years, and sometimes I see people who could have other options but don't know or don't want to explore. Them." "Doctor, are you saying I shouldn't be here?" "Mrs. Dorothy, I believe everyone should have the right to choose how they want to live their final years, and sometimes families make decisions based on their own convenience, not what's best for the elderly." Dorothy felt her eyes welling up with tears. It was the first time in months someone had suggested she had a choice. "But doctor, even if I wanted to leave, where would I go? My children sold my house." "There are many options, Mrs. Dorothy. Apartments for rent, small homes, assisted living facilities that aren't like nursing homes. But all that costs money I don't have." Dr. Morgan looked her in the eye. "Are you sure you don't?" Dorothy's heart raced. "What do you mean?" "Mrs. Dorothy, in 30 years of working with the elderly, I've learned to recognize certain things. You don't speak like someone who's always been poor. You don't act like someone who's always depended on others." "Doctor, you've had your own means before, haven't you?" Dorothy stayed silent. "Mrs. Dorothy, I'm not trying to invade your privacy, but if you have resources and are here against your will, that's a situation I need to understand." "Better? Why?" "Because my job is to ensure the elderly are well cared for and where they want to be." Dorothy studied Dr. Morgan for a long time. There was something in his expression that inspired trust. "Doctor, if I tell you something, do you promise not to tell my children?" "I promise anything you say will stay between us unless you say otherwise." "I have money, doctor, a lot of money." Dr. Morgan didn't show surprise. "How much?" "Almost $200,000 and some family jewelry." "Where is this money?" "With a friend of mine. It's safe." "And why didn't you tell your children?" Dorothy told the whole story to Dr. Morgan. How she had saved the money over the years, how her children assumed she was poor, how the decision to put her in the nursing home was made without properly consulting her. "And now I don't know what to do anymore," she concluded. "If I reveal I have money, they'll be furious that I hid it. If I don't reveal it, I'll spend the rest of my life here." Dr. Morgan thought for a few minutes. "Mrs. Dorothy, may I make a suggestion?" "Of course." "What if you gradually started taking control of your life? You don't have to. Reveal everything at once." "How so?" "You could start by asking to leave the nursing home for outings, longer visits to friends' houses. You could look at apartments for rent, just to see your options. You could slowly show your children that you're more independent than they think." "What about the money?" "You could tell them part of it. Say a friend offered to help, or that you discovered you were entitled to some benefits. You don't have to reveal the full amount right away." Dorothy liked the idea. It was a plan that would give her time to prepare emotionally for the full conversation with her children. "Doctor, do you really think I should leave here?" "Mrs. Dorothy, I think you should be where you want to be. If you want to stay here because you like it, that's fine. If you're here only because others decided for you, then that needs to change." That night, Dorothy called Claire and told her about the conversation with Dr. Morgan. "Dorothy, finally, I've been waiting for you to make this decision for months. Claire, do you think I'm doing the right thing?" "Honey, you're doing what you should have done from the start. Your children need to learn you're not a helpless child. But what if they get furious? Let them. Were they furious with you when they brought you here? No, they just did what was convenient. For them, Claire was right. Dorothy had spent months worrying about her children's feelings, but they hadn't worried about hers when they made the decision. The next day, Dorothy asked to speak with Fiona, the social worker. Fiona, I'd like to know the procedures for a resident to leave here temporarily. Temporarily, you mean for visits? Yes, longer visits, spending a few days at friends' houses, things like that. There's no problem at all, Mrs. Dorothy. You just need to let us know in advance and leave contact information for where you'll be. What if I wanted to spend a week away? That's fine too. You'd still pay the monthly fee, of course, but you can stay away as long as you like. Dorothy called Claire. Claire, can you host me at your place for a week? Of course. I can. When do you want to come? This weekend. Wonderful. And Dorothy, are you going to tell your children where you are? I'll tell them I'm visiting a friend. That's all for now. That Friday, Dorothy packed a small suitcase and left the nursing home for the first time in 4 months. The feeling of freedom was exhilarating. Claire's house was small but cozy. They had been neighbors for so long that Dorothy almost felt at home there. Dorothy, you seem different, Claire observed during dinner. How so? More. Determined. For the past few months, every time we talked, you seemed resigned. Now I see a spark in your eyes. It was true. The conversation with Dr. Morgan had rekindled something in Dorothy that she thought she'd lost, the will to fight for what she wanted. On Saturday morning, she called Jennifer. Hi, sweetheart. I'm at Claire's house for a visit. That's nice, Mom. Are you feeling well? Very well. In fact, I'm thinking of doing more visits like this. Of course, Mom, it's good for you to get out of the nursing home a bit. Jennifer, can you take me to see some apartments next week? Apartments? What for, Mom? Just to look. I'm curious about what rental apartments are like these days. Mom, you're not thinking of moving out of the nursing home, are you? I'm just looking, dear. It doesn't hurt to look. Jennifer felt worried but agreed to take her mother to see some apartments. On Monday, they visited 3 small apartments in the central area of Cleveland. Dorothy fell in love with the second. 1. A 2-bedroom apartment with a small balcony and a great location. Mom, why are you so interested in this apartment? Jennifer, can I ask you something? Are you happy knowing I'm in a nursing home? Mom, what kind of question is that? It's a simple question. Are you happy knowing your mother lives in a nursing home? Jennifer stayed silent for a few seconds. Mom, we did what we thought was best. But are you happy with that decision? Mom, we didn't have a choice. There's always a choice, Jennifer. You picked the most convenient one for yourselves. Mom, that's not fair. We were worried about you. You were worried about the inconvenience I was causing in your lives. Jennifer felt her eyes fill with tears. Mom, we love you. I know you do. But love isn't just a feeling, Jennifer. Love is also action. It's considering what the person wants, not just what's convenient. That afternoon, Dorothy called the realtor who had shown her the apartment. Mr. Charles, I'd like to rent the apartment on Magnolia Street. That's great, Mrs. Dorothy. I'll prepare the paperwork. Do you have proof of income? I do, and I can pay 3 months in advance. Excellent. We can finalize it on Thursday. Dorothy was making a decision that would change everything. She hadn't told her children the whole truth yet, but she was taking the first step to regain control of her life. On Thursday, she signed the lease and paid 3 months up front with the money Claire had withdrawn for her. Claire, it's official now. I have an apartment. And when are you going to tell your kids? I don't know yet. First, I'll furnish the apartment and get settled. Then I'll gradually show them I'm more independent. What about the nursing home? I'll keep it for now. I can spend some days at the apartment and some at the nursing home until I'm ready to make the final decision. Dorothy spent the weekend buying basic furniture. Nothing fancy, just enough to make it livable. It felt wonderful to choose her own things again. On Monday, she returned to the nursing home, but now she had a secret that made her smile. Dorothy, you look radiant, Meredith observed. Visiting your friend did you good. It did, Meredith, very good. That afternoon, Dr. Morgan came for a routine visit. Dorothy approached him. Doctor, thank you for the advice. I rented an apartment. Really? That's wonderful. How do you feel? Scared but happy. I haven't felt this alive in months. And your children? They don't know yet. I'm taking it slow, like you suggested. Great. And remember, you have every right to be happy and make choices about your own life. That week, Dorothy started spending some days at the apartment. She told the nursing home she was visiting a friend and her kids that she was doing special activities there. It was a double life, but for the first time in months she was choosing how to live. At the apartment, she cooked her own meals, watched the shows she liked, and slept and woke up when she wanted. It was a small but meaningful freedom. One afternoon at the apartment, she decided to take the next step. She called Michael. "Son, I need to talk to you and your sisters. It's important." "Did something happen, Mom?" "Nothing bad happened, but I need to talk to you all." They arranged to meet at Magnolia Gardens on Saturday afternoon. Dorothy spent all of Friday rehearsing what she would say. She decided to tell only part of the truth for now. On Saturday, her 3 children were in the visiting room of the nursing home, clearly worried. "Mom, what did you want to talk about?" asked Rebecca. "Kids, first I want to say I love you. Everything I'm about to say comes from love." The 3 exchanged nervous glances. "You brought me here 4 months ago because you thought it was best for me. I accepted because I trusted you. But now I need to tell you how I feel." "Mom," Jennifer began. "Let me finish, dear. I feel abandoned. I know that wasn't your intention, but that's how it feels." "Mom, we come to visit," said Michael. "You do visit, yes. But you made a decision about my life without really consulting me. You sold my house without asking if I agreed. You put me here like I was an object that needed to be stored somewhere." The 3 fell silent. "I understand you're going through financial difficulties. I understand that taking care of me would be complicated, but you never asked what I wanted." "Mom, what do you want?" asked Rebecca, tears in her eyes. "I want choices. I want you to see me as someone capable of making decisions, not as a burden to be managed." "You were never a burden," said Jennifer. "Then why did you make all the decisions about my life without asking me?" There was a long silence. "Mom, what do you want us to do?" asked Michael. "I want you to consider other possibilities. I want you to talk to me about alternatives, not decide for me." "What kind of alternatives?" asked Jennifer. "A small apartment, for example. I could live on my own again." "Mom, you don't have the money for that," said Michael. This was the moment Dorothy had been waiting for. "Michael, how can you be so sure I don't have money?" "Because we've always known your financial situation." "You assumed you knew my financial situation." The 3 exchanged glances. "Mom, are you saying you have money?" asked Rebecca. "I'm saying you never really asked about my finances. You assumed all I had was my pension." "And you have more than that?" pressed Michael. "I do." "How much?" asked Jennifer. "Enough to rent a small apartment and live with dignity." "Mom, why didn't you ever tell us?" asked Rebecca. "Because you never asked. You decided I was poor and needed to be put in a nursing home. You never gave me a chance to show I had other options." Michael was visibly irritated. "Mom, this doesn't make sense. If you had money, why didn't you say so when we were discussing at the nursing home?" "Because I wanted to see if you cared about what I wanted, or if you were only thinking about your own convenience." "That's ridiculous, Mom. We were worried about you. You were worried about the inconvenience I might cause in your lives." The conversation was growing tense, but Dorothy knew it was necessary. "Kids, do you want the truth? I have enough money to live independently. I always have. I saved for years, working hard and living simply." "How much money?" asked Michael bluntly. "That doesn't matter right now. What matters is you made a decision about my life based on wrong assumptions." "Mom, we need to know how much you have," insisted Jennifer. "Why? So you can manage it for me? Decide how I should spend it?" "To understand the situation. The situation is simple. I'm a 78-year-old woman with my own means, who was placed in a nursing home against her will by children who assumed they knew what was best for her." Rebecca was crying. "Mom, we just wanted to take care of you." "I know, dear. But taking care of someone doesn't mean making every decision for them." The conversation went on for another hour, with moments of tension and emotion. In the end, they reached an agreement. Dorothy could explore other housing options, with her children's support. "Mom, if you really want to try living alone, again, we'll support you," said Jennifer. "But we want to be involved in the process," added Michael. "To help, not to decide." "It was progress," Dorothy acknowledged. That night she called Claire. "Claire, I told them part of the truth." "How did they react?" "They were shocked, a little upset, but they accepted that I have the right to choose." "And now?" "Now I'll show them the apartment and see how they react." The following week, Dorothy took her 3 children to see the apartment she had rented. "Mom, when did you rent this?" asked Michael, surprised. "Last week." "With what money?" "With my money, Michael." They walked through the small but well-organized apartment. Dorothy had carefully chosen each piece of furniture, creating a space that reflected her personality. "It's lovely, Mom," admitted Jennifer. "But are you sure you can live alone?" "Jennifer, I lived alone for years before you took me to the nursing home, and I was doing just fine." "But you were forgetting things," said Rebecca. "Everyone forgets things. You forget things too. That doesn't mean you need to be put in a nursing home." It was true, and they knew it. "Mom, how much money do you have saved?" Michael asked again. "Michael, why is it important to know the exact amount?" "Because we want to make sure you won't struggle. I have enough to live comfortably for many years. That's all you need to know for now." The children were frustrated by the lack of specifics, but began to understand their mother was no longer willing to be treated like a child. In the following weeks, Dorothy split her time between the nursing home and the apartment. It was a gradual transition, allowing her to readjust to independent life. Dr. Morgan monitored the process with satisfaction. "Mrs. Johnson, how are you feeling about the change?" "Scared but happy. It's like learning to walk again." "And your children?" "They're getting used to the idea that their mother isn't the helpless little old lady they imagined." "That's wonderful. When do you plan to move out for good?" "I'm not sure yet. I'm enjoying this gradual transition." Truthfully, Dorothy still hadn't shared the full truth about her finances. Her children knew she had some money, but had no idea how much. It was Meredith who helped her make the final decision. "Dorothy, you need to choose. Either you live here or you live in your apartment. This double life is exhausting you." Meredith was right. Dorothy was wearing herself out trying to maintain 2 lives. "You're right, Meredith. It's time to choose." "And what's your choice?" "I want to live in my apartment. I want my freedom back." "Then that's what you should do." That night, Dorothy made a decision. It was time to tell her children the whole truth. She called each of them and arranged a meeting for Saturday. "Kids, there's something I need to tell you, something important." "Mom, are you okay?" asked Jennifer, worried. "I'm fine, but I need to be completely honest with you." On Saturday, they met at Dorothy's apartment. She had prepared coffee and cake as she usually did when they visited her home. "Kids, you know I have some money saved up, but you don't know how much." "That's right," said Michael. "I have almost $200,000. The silence that followed was deafening. $200,000, repeated Rebecca, incredulous. "Yes, and some jewelry I inherited from my mother." "Mom, where did this money come from?" asked Jennifer. Dorothy told them the whole story, how she had started saving after her husband left, how she worked overtime as a seamstress, how she made small investments over the years. "I saved every penny I could. I lived simply so I could save for you." "For us?" asked Michael. "My plan was always to leave everything to you when my time came, divided equally among the 3 of you." "Then why did you hide this from us?" asked Rebecca. "Because when you decided to put me in the nursing home, I realized you were only thinking about what was convenient for you. You didn't care what I wanted." "Mom, if we had known you had this money," Jennifer began. "What? You wouldn't have put me in the nursing home?" "Why?" "Because I wouldn't be a financial burden anymore." The 3 of them fell silent. "Kids, I want to ask you something, and I want you to answer honestly. If I didn't have this money, would you have tried to find other ways to take care of me?" There was a long silence. "Mom, we did what we thought was best at the time," Michael finally said, "based on the assumption that I was poor and dependent." "Yes," admitted Jennifer, "and now that you know I'm not poor, what do you think about putting me in the nursing home?" Rebecca started crying. "Mom, we made a mistake." "You did. But I can understand why. You had your own struggles and saw me as just another problem to solve. That's not how it was, Michael protested. It was, Michael, and I'm not judging you for it. I'm trying to make you understand that we need to change how we relate to each other. How do you mean? Asked Jennifer. I want you to see me as an independent person, capable of making decisions about my own life, not as a burden to be managed. Mom, we never saw you as a burden, said Rebecca. Then why didn't you consult me properly before deciding about the nursing home? They had no answer for that. Kids, I love you, but you need to understand that as long as I'm lucid and capable, the decisions about my life are mine. What if you make the wrong decisions? Asked Michael. Then they'll be my mistakes. I'd rather make my own mistakes than live a life chosen by others. The conversation went on for hours. There were tears, arguments, but also understanding. In the end, they reached a new agreement about their relationship. Mom, we want to apologize, said Jennifer. We were wrong. You don't need to apologize. You need to learn. And we want to help you move here permanently, added Rebecca. If I want help, I'll ask. For now, I'm doing just fine on my own. It was a new beginning for the family. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing, in the following weeks, Dorothy finally moved into the apartment for good. She said goodbye to Magnolia Gardens with mixed feelings. She had made friends there, but she was happy to regain her independence. Meredith was emotional during the farewell. Dorothy, you taught me it's never too late to fight for our dignity. Meredith, you can find alternatives too. You don't have to stay here if you don't want to. I don't have the resources you do. You might have more than you think. Talk to Dr. Morgan. He can help you explore options. Dr. Morgan was also pleased with Dorothy's decision. Mrs. Johnson, I'm very proud of you. You've taken back control of your life. Doctor, thank you for encouraging me. Without you, I might never have found the courage. The courage was always there, you just needed someone to remind you of it. In her apartment, Dorothy settled into a routine that made her happy. She woke up when she wanted, cooked her own meals, and had visitors whenever she felt like it. Her children started visiting regularly, but now the visits were different. They consulted her about decisions, respected her opinions, and treated her like an independent adult. Mum, we're thinking of taking a family trip during the holidays. Would you like to come? Jennifer asked during one visit. Where to? We thought about going to the beach, renting a house for a week. Sounds nice. Can I think about it and give you an answer? Of course, Mom, no rush. That was the difference. Now they asked, they didn't decide for her. A month after moving into the apartment, Dorothy decided to do something she'd wanted for a long time, learn how to use a computer. Jennifer, can you teach me how to use the internet? Of course, Mom. What do you want to learn it for? I want to look things up, talk to people, maybe take an online class. Jennifer was surprised by her mother's eagerness to learn new things. Mom, have you always wanted to do these things? Always. But when you all saw me as a helpless old lady, I started seeing myself that way too. It was a painful but important confession. Dorothy not only learned how to use the computer, but also discovered a passion for researching crafts and recipes. She made new friends in online groups and even signed up for a distance learning painting course. Gradually, she also began using some of her money for things that made her happy, buying art supplies, redecorating the apartment to her taste, and even hiring a cleaner to come once a week. Mom, you're really thriving, Rebecca observed during a visit. What do you mean? You're different, happier, more active. It's like you've come back to life. And that was exactly it. Dorothy had come back to life. 6 months after leaving Magnolia Gardens, she did something that surprised everyone. She started teaching sewing classes for older women at the neighborhood community center. Mom, you don't have to work, Michael said. I'm not working. Out of necessity. I'm doing something I enjoy that also helps others. The sewing classes became very popular. Dorothy discovered she had a talent for teaching and enjoyed the company of other women her age. It was through these classes that she met Mrs. Helen, a 75-year-old widow going through similar struggles to what she had faced. "Dorothy, my children want to put me in a home. They say I can't live on my own." "And can you?" "I think so, but they say it's dangerous for a woman my age to live alone." "Helen, can I give you some advice?" "Of course. Don't let other people decide how you should live your life, even if they're your children." Dorothy shared her story with Helen, who felt inspired to fight for her independence. "Do you think I should resist my children's decision?" "I think you should. Talk to them honestly about what you want. And if they won't listen, seek help." "What kind of help?" "There are professionals who work with elderly issues, social workers, specialized doctors, people who can help you show your children that you're capable of living independently." Helen followed Dorothy's advice and sought professional help. Over time, she managed to convince her children that she could continue living alone with some adjustments to the house and occasional support. "Dorothy, thank you for encouraging me. You saved me from being put in a nursing home against my will. Helen, you saved yourself. I just showed you it was possible." Through the sewing classes, Dorothy discovered there were many seniors in her situation, independent people being pressured by their families to give up their autonomy. She began getting more involved in issues related to elderly rights. She attended lectures, spoke with social workers, and was even invited to speak at an event about active aging. "Mom, you've become an activist," Michael teased. "I've become someone who fights for other seniors' right to be treated with dignity. And we're proud of you," Jennifer said. It was true. Her children had learned to admire their mother's strength and determination. A year after leaving the nursing home, Dorothy decided to throw a party to celebrate. She invited her children, grandchildren, some friends from sewing class, and even Meredith, who had also managed to leave the nursing home and was now living with a niece. "Dorothy, thank you for inspiring me," Meredith said during the party. "Thank you for being my friend during the hard times." Dr. Morgan was also invited. "Mrs. Dorothy, you're proof that it's never too late to take control of our lives." "Doctor, thank you for encouraging me when I needed it most. You did all the work. I just gave you a little push." During the party, Dorothy gave a short speech. "I want to thank everyone here today. A year ago, I was in a nursing home feeling abandoned and invisible. Today, I'm in my own home, surrounded by people who love and respect me. I've learned that aging doesn't mean losing the ability to choose. I've learned it's possible to fight for our rights at any age. And most of all, I've learned that it's never too late to start over." Her children were moved by their mother's words. "Mom, we've learned so much from you this past year," Rebecca said. "Learned what?" "That you're not just our mother. You're a strong, independent person who deserves respect. And that we were wrong to make decisions about your life without properly consulting you," Michael added. "Kids, you did what you thought was right at the time. What matters is that we've learned and grown together. And we promise never to underestimate you again," Jennifer said. It was a promise they kept. In the years that followed, her children always consulted Dorothy on important decisions, respected her choices, and treated her as the wise, independent matriarch she was. Dorothy continued teaching sewing, participating in community activities, and helping other seniors stand up for their rights. She used some of her savings to travel, visit places she'd always wanted to see, and take courses that interested her. At 80, she was more active and happier than she'd been at 70. "Mom, how do you have so much energy?" Jennifer asked during a visit. "Because I'm living the life I chose to live, not the life others chose for me." That was the key difference. Dorothy had learned that happiness in old age didn't come from being cared for like a child, but from keeping her autonomy and the right to make her own choices. In one of her talks on active aging, she always ended with the same message. "Aging is a privilege not everyone gets, but how we age is a choice we can all make. Don't let others decide how you should live your later years. Fight for your rights, keep your dignity, and remember, you're far more capable than others think." At 81 years old, Dorothy Johnson had become proof that it's never too late to take control of your own life. Her children, who once believed she couldn't live on her own, now saw her as the strong, independent woman she had always been. And the money she had saved for years? She used some to secure her independence, some to help other seniors in similar situations, and kept the rest to leave as an inheritance for her children. But now they knew they wouldn't just receive money, but also the example of a woman who never stopped fighting for her dignity. The black suitcase that once held her secrets was now empty. All the secrets had been revealed, all the truths told. And Dorothy Johnson, at 81, was finally living the life she had always deserved. A life of her own choices, preserved dignity, and true love. A love that included respect and consideration. The end. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have something to share with us, leave a sincere comment below. Do you think Dorothy made the right choice by hiding the money at first? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for being here. Don't forget to like this video. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories.